Hey guys, and welcome back to the Outer Rim. I'm Gabe Green, and today, with the help of one of my fellow Outer Rim admins, we'll be talking about the latest episode of The Bad Batch, Cut and Run. And today I am joined by Drew, who is still, 5 months later, hiding from us. What do you have to say for yourself?
Uh, you know, I'll come out of hiding one day, just like Luke Skywalker did in The Last Jedi, or The Force Awakens, technically, but yeah.
Show up triumphantly and save the day.
Yep.
All right. So this is. It feels like it's been forever since we did this, but it's only been less than 5 months since The Mandalorian season 2 ended.
Yeah.
It feels like a year or two. I don't know why. Um, yeah. So and since then we've actually met. We got together for the to watch the Snyder Cut. That was cool. But we're not here to talk about that. Today we are here to talk about the latest episode of The Bad Batch. And if you would rather listen to this review in audio form, you can find it on my podcast feed, Franchise Fatigue. I'll be posting all the audio from our Bad Batch reviews over onto that feed, or you can just watch it here on YouTube. And if you're enjoying it, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. All right, so Cut and Run. This is the second episode of The Bad Batch. It is directed by, or written by Gursimran Sandhu, and directed by Stuart Lee, and the story editor is Matt Mishnovets. Actually, before we talk about this, I should probably get your real quick thoughts on the first episode. Like, how are you feeling The Bad Batch now that we're 2 episodes in?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the first episode. And I mentioned it in the Outer Rim group. I was a little bit like worried about the show because I didn't absolutely love the Bad Batch in Clone Wars season 7.
Mm-hmm.
But they quickly grew on to me in the first episode of the Bad Batch. I'm still not a huge fan of Wrecker, but the rest of the
I don't
squad.
know. With that poncho, he can do anything. I love him.
Okay, yeah, I will say in episode 2 he's a lot better, but yeah, the characters grew on me pretty quickly in the first episode, and I was like, when I kind of got a feel of like where they're going with this show, I'm like, all right, I'm all in. Like, just take it on from here. I just want to see more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the thing that has struck me the most about this show in these 2 episodes is how quiet it is. And I would never have guessed that watching the Bad Batch arc in season 7, which I did enjoy. I thought it was just a classic, Clone Wars action arc, and I would have expected this show to be kind of nonstop action record, just smashing things. But so far with these 2 episodes, it's been very willing to just slow down and be quiet and sit with characters. It's a rather contemplative show. I'd say it's probably even more quiet than Clone Wars and Rebels were regularly. It's kind of surprising. I don't even know what to make of it quite yet, because it's just not at all what I was expecting from a show called The Bad Batch.
Yeah, same.
Um, so here we have them. They go to Salukamai, which we spent the episode The Deserter back in, what was that, season 2 or 3, I
Somewhere
think,
around there. Yeah, it
of
was a
Clone
long
Wars.
time ago.
And we meet back up with Cut Laquan, which is just a kind of a favorite of mine. I've always really liked that episode. It was great seeing them come back here. He's been a clone in hiding, and the Bad Batch, they're not much for subtlety and laying low, so they have to get some pointers on how to hide from this guy who's been doing it successfully for all these years. And on top of that, so you've got the them coming there. They're all kind of clone outcasts. He's one who's been defying orders for years now. Also, there's the aspect of he's a family man. He has a family, and the Bad Batch are saddled with this kid that they don't know what to do with, and so getting to see them together with a family, it's all actually tied together very neatly thematically. It's not just, oh, you remember this guy, we're bringing him back.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I've seen like a lot of complaints online that this episode was kind of like filler, which I really disagree with, because I mean the purpose of this episode was for them to go into hiding and they get to the planet and meet up with Cut and all of them, and they find out that the planet is already being influenced by the Empire, which is like it's crazy seeing because like I'm imagining that there hasn't been much time since Order 66 in this episode, so
Yeah.
just seeing how much influence the Empire already
Oh,
has,
I
like
know. Yeah, Rex came by the day before. They said so. I think it's been, and I think they said they started um, claiming and confiscating the vehicles about a week ago. So I think it's been around a weekish.
yeah, still like really fast though, which is just like crazy. So it kind of like shows you how much of an impact the Empire has very early on, how much influence they already have in the galaxy, um, which was just like really neat to see because I feel like most of the stuff that we've seen in between, episode 3 and episode 4, it's always been a little bit later on when the
Mm.
Empire is like already pretty established. Like, they're already wearing this like classic stormtrooper armor and everything. It's interesting seeing the transition from Order 66 to the Empire.
Yeah, and I don't understand that filler thing. Like, okay, Mando taking Frog Lady and fighting ice spiders. I disagree that it's filler, but I can at least get the criticism. But it's all character development and like heavy plotting. Like this is this is absolutely a story episode. And we have to figure out like what to do with Omega. Like keeping her on this crew of crazy soldiers is not the automatic. It's not this decision you instantly come to. It's got to be come to naturally. And this episode is very much about Omega. I loved they gave us that moment of her just experiencing a planet that isn't just water for the first time. What is this? That would be dirt. I love tech.
Yeah.
It reminded me of those lovely little moments with Rey experiencing worlds that aren't deserts for the first time.
Yeah.
But I love that even in that, there's always like a storm in the distance. Like as she's like experiencing this beautiful world, there's like a storm cloud coming. I noticed throughout the episode, every time they look up at the sky, there's the storm cloud coming in. Very, very thematic. Yeah, this episode does share a little bit in common with the episode The Sanctuary from Mando season 1, where we go to this peaceful village, kind of have a break, and possibly leave this child behind with a loving family, and ultimately they don't. But it definitely plot wise feels very different.
Yeah, definitely.
And this was something I noticed, and I mentioned it in our review of I think it was The Heiress, how few families there are in Star Wars. Because the frog family we've seen that's like, wow, a nuclear family. I can't remember the last time I actually saw one of these in Star Wars, and in here as well. It's just refreshing to see this loving family with the kids, and they've got their own little homestead and world. It's just a really nice change of pace. And getting to watch Cut just be an awesome dad, like the moment where she goes out and it gets attacked by the Nexu, and Hunter's just kind of laying into her like a drill sergeant. He's like, easy, she's not a soldier, and he just goes in for the hug. Just being an awesome dad. It's so sweet to watch.
Yeah, it was a very heartwarming episode for sure. Yeah, I definitely see what you mean about there not being many families in Star Wars. And when there is, they're always like either dysfunctional or they're
dead.
Killed off. Yeah. So it's like, and just saying, I'm really glad they didn't kill off Cut or any of his family members because I was expecting that to happen, honestly, and I was very glad that it didn't happen.
Like one of my least favorite tropes from like these Western stories. Like leave the nice families alone. There's a really great line from Sue. She says, children will always find ways of getting into trouble. It's what they do. Protecting them is what we do. Which is very true. If you've ever met a human toddler, they shouldn't be alive. If there's a ledge, they will dive off of it. If there's no ledge, they will find one to jump off of. They're crazy. and just there's a lot of little moments between Hunter and Omega, just him watching her sleep and in the beginning, or the little moment when but before she goes outside to play with the children, she looks at him and he kind of gives her the nod. They're really building up the connection between him and her in particular. I guess as the squad leader, she's now one of his men, and he feels very much responsible for her in a way that the other characters don't seem to as much.
Yeah, definitely.
Wrecker's just the big brother.
Yeah, I'm definitely liking the like family dynamic that they're having with the squad, with Omega being involved now, and like also Omega has been great so far, because I mean anytime that any show ever introduces a child character, you're always going to be super scared because half the time in shows like these they'll just make them the most annoying characters ever. But I'm really surprised how mature they've been handling this show, not only with like the storytelling but also the characters, and especially like Omega. I've just been like super surprised with her for both episodes so far, and I can't wait to see where they go next with her. The relationship between her and Hunter has been great too, and like seeing his like this like father daughter, but also kind of like he's more like an uncle or like an older brother. I mean, he's basically like all three since he's a clone, technically related. But yeah, their dynamic has been really awesome in this episode, and it's a nice contrast between like the Mandalorian where like Mando, like both Mando and Hunter, like they're obviously not dads, and they both end up basically being like dads in both of these shows, and just seeing the differences between the two, like rather than a lot of comparisons, kind of surprised me too, because it's like, oh, they're doing this kind of story again when they just did it in The Mandalorian, but it's been very different in The Bad Batch so far.
And they're setting up some kind of secret for Omega. There's a line from Cut. The Kaminoans don't create anything without a purpose. Like what's hers? So there's got to be some kind of reveal of whatever she was intended for as the first female clone, and being called Omega, quite possibly the last clone created. And I really love her little her version of Tamara Morrison's New Zealand accent. It's just kind of adorable.
Yeah.
The voice actress Michelle Yang does a great job. She's actually 37 years old. That's crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah, and I like how the way they make the action, each character always has a purpose. Like it was that way in the first episode. In this excuse me. Tech is going in and getting the. I mean, not Tech. Echo goes in and hacks in, steals the codes. Tech gets them made. Then Wrecker rips off the magnetic clamp, and Omega gets to run the chain codes. Like each one always has a purpose, and they're all doing something uniquely related to their skill set and who they are within the action. It keeps it interesting. And Hunter's really cool in action. He's just so smooth and fluid.
I love his fighting style with like the knives and everything, which is like really unique. I feel like we haven't seen too many clones with like a melee focus in the Clone Wars. I mean, sure, there's like some, but like having this like kind of melee centric, very stealth, like fluid character in the Clone Troopers is really interesting.
Yeah, so this is a pretty quiet episode. There's not a lot to talk about, plot wise or action wise. A couple of moments that did stand out to me. I mean, as I said before, but Wrecker in that poncho and hat it looks so good. I don't know like why, but it just looks so great. Wrecker using the gonk droid like a dumbbell at the end.
Oh my gosh, I was waiting when that happened. I wonder where they got that gonk droid from though.
I think it's just been on the ship, because back in he was doing something similar back in the Bad Batch arc where he was like pressing it as he was like eating a
Okay,
chicken
okay.
leg or something. Oh, and did you see the scene, the moment where he hits his head? Like,
Yeah,
with
yeah, it was so subtle.
just, I love that gag is living on.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so it's quiet. I do have a couple complaints. One is that I feel like this episode should have been episode 3 or 4. I feel like the threat of losing Omega and what do we do with this child? Like that question, I think would have been more powerful if we had an episode or two of Adventures and she had been like the stress of having a child on this crew had been like weighing on them, and like her being in danger is weighing on Hunter. Like I feel like this conflict, internal conflict, would have been more powerful. It happened an episode or two later rather than the second episode. Like, so we could have had the threat to her, also building the emotional connections between her and the crew. I think it would have been a bit more emotionally impactful if it happened a little later on.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree with that. Because yeah, like even though like I love the character development that they did in this episode, it would have been so much more powerful, like having this question, like, all right, do we leave her with Cut, to like go live like this peaceful life with like a family, or do we keep her on board? And having that kind of like in the back of your mind the entire episode, like, oh no, are they actually gonna like give her up? Like, is it the last episode that we're getting with her? um
mhm.
like if they had that like midway through the season or something like that, that would have been really awesome.
And I get they want to get past this question of like, why are they keeping this child? How irresponsible are they? Like, I think it is important that it happens a little earlier on the season, but I think it should have had an episode or two at least. Another thing that was weird is I feel like the moment of decision from Omega, like when she's she's with Cut and Sue, they're going towards the freighter. When she decides to go after the Bad Batch, like the moment of decision feels missing. It's just they're walking towards it, and the next thing we know, she's running across the battlefield, and like it makes Cut and Sue look like really irresponsible guardians. Like they just like keep walking and get on the ship. They don't even mention, oh, where's the child we were entrusted with. So I feel like there should have been a moment of decision, and then like them noticing, oh, she's gone, and she's over there, and like, okay, she made her choice, and because like, it's just kind of weird. There's a piece missing there, like in this really crucial moment, where all the dramatic arc is coming to its climax, and it's like, oh, there she is, and Cut and Sue don't seem to care.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I think the only explanation that I can come up with, which is like really reaching, is like maybe they were trying to like play cool and like not be like super suspicious. But yeah, like I definitely can see that. It was a little weird that she just kind of ran off, and they they didn't even like say or think anything about it.
Yeah. Well, in that case, maybe it's maybe it's good that she didn't stay with them. They would have left her on the shuttle accidentally when they got to the next planet, and she'd go off to Coruscant or something.
They would have
Uh,
gone like, shopping at like a market and accidentally left her there or something.
yeah. At least Hunter, cares where she is. All
Yeah.
right. Anything else in particular you wanted to mention about this episode before we close?
Um, the score.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
The score really just blew me away this episode. It was very unique. I will say though, like when I heard the theme, that they kind of had like this one theme playing throughout the entire episode, which I'm assuming is Omega's theme. Does it happen whenever she
Hmm.
walked out of the ship? Or that's when they first introduced it. Um, but I immediately recognized the sound. And so I tried like looking up online. I was like, "Is this from like Star Wars? Like I've heard this before."
Was it from last
And
episode? Maybe.
so I looked up on Twitter, and I saw other people mentioning it, and apparently, it's almost like shot for shot the same track as this one track from Halo 3 called Beyond a Pale Horse. There's a segment in that
Was
track.
Kiner involved in that?
No, he wasn't, which is like super weird. So like people are like, yeah, there's like this accidental like Halo Easter egg in in the Bad Batch, which I thought was like super interesting, and I played them like side by side, and I was like, yeah, this is almost exactly the same. So I don't know if he like got inspiration from that or something, but
Maybe his son Sean Kiner, who works with him.
I
Maybe.
don't know. It was really interesting.
Huh.
um,
Yeah, I did really like the music. You know, it's very low key and just lovely.
yeah,
Kiner's work is, it was a little mixed, I think, in the first couple seasons, but as the longer it's gone into Rebels, into season 7, it just gets better and better.
mhm.
Um, yeah, and also, I'm sad that they didn't do the intro again. They did the full on Clone Wars
Yeah,
intro in the premiere, and it got me excited. Like, are we gonna get Tom Kane in the front of every episode? No. And I'm nervous that the season premiere with his narration is the last time we're gonna hear Tom Kane in Star Wars. Since he
yeah.
had the stroke and possibly lost his voice, which is sad.
Mm.
But at least I loved that. I loved the that newsreel opening in the first episode.
Oh yeah, it was great.
Oh,
If we do hear it again, I hope it's like for the finale or something like that,
mm,
and just like kind of, it would be really cool if they had it again to like kind of show what the perspective of that would be like from like the Imperial side of things.
hmm.
Because like we've always like heard his like voice like announcing things for like the Clone Wars. So it's like I wonder like how different it would be if
What if
we heard it from the Imperials.
he's like an Imperial propagandist, like a hype man?
That would be
That
amazing.
that would be cool. Probably not going to happen. But hey, we could
Yeah.
dream. All right. So that was our review of Cut and Run. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you did, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and join us over on the Outer Rim. At the Outer Rim, a Star Wars group on Facebook. It's a community dedicated to positive and constructive conversation on the Star Wars saga. You're not going to find just all the hate and nasty noise that's kind of consuming so much of Star Wars discourse. It's we're really trying to make it a positive community of people who actually like Star Wars. Like, imagine that. Yeah, so check us out over there. Also, yeah, and that is all. And we will see you next week. Do we know what the next episode's name is? I didn't even look it up. We will see you.
Um, I think it's Mercenaries. That little trailer that they showed.
Yeah,
I'm
the
assuming that's what it
teaser
is.
was called that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so I'm assuming that's the next episode, but I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah. All right. So we will see you next week on whatever this episode is called. See you then.